The scene shifts to Anna, who's busy prepping some mushrooms. As she's walking around, Nightingale suddenly pops up behind her. Anna offers the mushrooms to Nightingale and explains she's making snacks for the prince. Maggie picked these bird-kiss mushrooms from the misty forest today, and they're super fresh. Since the prince has been working so hard lately, she thought some snacks would be a nice treat. Anna asks if Nightingale wants to try some once she's done. Nightingale asks if Anna can show her how to make them, and Anna's all too happy to teach her. The two ladies get into their cooking groove. Anna places the mushrooms on a plate after cleaning them, with some dip sauce to bring out their flavor. She grills them until they turn a golden color, and they both enjoy their cooking time together. While they're cooking, Anna asks her senior if she's missed the prince. Nightingale goes silent and looks pretty embarrassed. Anna reassures her that she's not the only one who missed him, because everyone who went to the king's city felt the same way. Noticing Nightingale's unusual behavior, the junior asks what's wrong. Nightingale just says it's nothing but admits that she missed him too. Anna then points out that if she were in Nightingale's place, she'd be dying to reunite with the prince. Nightingale gets a bit somber hearing this, but then Anna snaps her back to the moment, reminding her that the mushrooms are burning. Once they're done, Nightingale takes a bite and finds them delicious. Anna can't stop praising how amazing these mushrooms are when cooked just right. After finishing up, Anna brings a plate of perfectly roasted mushrooms to the prince. She mentions that Nightingale helped with the cooking but felt a bit awkward, so she didn't come along. The prince's mind flashes back to the kiss with Nightingale, and he's momentarily freaked out. Trying to focus, he grabs a mushroom, still thinking about that kiss, and takes a bite. Instantly, there's an explosion of flavor in his mouth. He goes totally nuts, like he's in a Food Wars anime. The mushrooms are perfectly salted and have a soft texture that takes the taste to the next level. The prince asks if there are a lot more of these mushrooms. Anna says they can harvest more since Maggie only made one trip and brought back a big bag. He mentions wanting to cook some veggies too since he's getting tired of meat. He grabs another mushroom, and as soon as he takes a bite, his face goes pale. He's hit with an overwhelming rush of salt, and tears start flowing involuntarily from the saltiness. Anna charmingly explains that this batch was made by Nightingale, who really paid attention to every step. The prince can tell these mushrooms are from Nightingale, especially because they're a bit clumsy but endearing. He reflects on how he's spent most of his life working on blueprints and never really had a chance to enjoy simple things like this, making him unsure how to respond to their feelings. He puts the plate back on the table, and Anna asks if he'd like to have some more mushrooms another day. He assures her he definitely will, and they were absolutely delicious. A few days later, it's the day of the award ceremony in Border Town, where people will be honored for their significant contributions. The prince reflects on the achievements they've made, like fighting demons, taking on Longsong Fortress, and everything else. He acknowledges that these accomplishments were all thanks to the efforts of everyone involved. These aren't just elites or artists, but ordinary people who made a huge difference. As a token of appreciation, everyone will receive a generous reward, a special medal designed by the prince himself, along with 100 golden royals and 5 acres of land. The crowd bursts into cheers at the prospect of rewards, while the prince kicks off the ceremony by inviting Iron Axe, the First Army's commander, to the stage. As Sister Echo sings a beautiful song to add a special touch to the ceremony, Iron Axe seems pretty anxious in front of the whole crowd. While the prince praises Iron Axe for his successful missions, like escorting people from the king's city and other heroic acts, Iron Axe is visibly nervous. But as the medal is placed over his chest, the crowd erupts in applause and cheers once more for their commander. While barely keeping his stage fright under control, Iron Axe gives a final salute, kneeling before the prince and nervously banging his head against the floor, thanking the prince for the recognition and rewards he feels he doesn't deserve. As he walks off, Knight Carter and the old advisor notice the genuine happiness shining on Iron Axe's face. The next person called up is Kyle Sichi, the renowned mad scientist who traveled all the way from Redwater City. Everyone is surprised that someone of his stature has come to Border Town after leaving the Redwater Alchemy Center. Prince Roland explains that while Sishi didn't participate in combat, his continuous improvements in firearms played a crucial role in their victories. He also takes a moment to flex the chemistry laboratory flyer, mentioning that they're recruiting people who have completed elementary education. The old man seems pretty annoyed that he was pulled from the lab for this, but the prince reassures him that it's a great chance to get more help for the lab. Once it expands, they'll have a bigger crew called Chemistry 201. The old man's mood brightens, and he starts bowing his head in gratitude. Next up is Nana, who's being rewarded for her healing work. As she steps onto the stage, the crowd starts singing her praises. Everyone thanks her for the times she's healed them, and it completely melts Nana's heart. Overwhelmed by emotion, she reflects on all the hard work she's put in and comes close to tears, realizing she's finally being acknowledged. The prince tells her to calm down and just respond to everyone's enthusiasm. She wipes her tears, stands tall on the stage, and thanks everyone for their generous praise. Once the ceremony wraps up, the prince looks completely worn out from all the speeches and activities. Just when he's about to sink into some well-deserved rest, Nana shows up, puts a finger to his lips, and shushes him. Startled, the prince follows her into his office, where he sees all the witches lined up in the hallway. Lady Scroll steps forward, offering her respects and praising him for his incredible hard work. She struggles to find the right words to express her gratitude. The prince, a bit nervous, listens as the witches explain they've finally found the holy mountain they were searching for. As long as he doesn't send them away, they're more than happy to stay and work with him. The prince shrugs off their flattery, telling them that all he's achieved is thanks to their support, so they don't need to feel indebted. Wendy then steps in, announcing that everyone should head to the dining hall, and the prince will join them soon after changing his clothes. Once the crowd has dispersed, Sister Scroll pulls the prince aside, reminding him that he's been burning the candle at both ends. She notices how tired he looks and suggests he needs to take better care of himself. The prince brushes it off, insisting he's perfectly fine, but his tired eyes give him away. Meanwhile, the witches walking down the corridor are buzzing with excitement about the feast ahead. They're all curious about what delicious offerings await them at the dining table. Back in his quarters, Anna is still with the prince. She thanks him personally, her words failing to capture the depth of her gratitude. The prince, now starting to change into more comfortable attire, casually asks why she's so determined to stay in Border Town. Anna, with a touch of shyness, admits she doesn't have a specific reason, but makes it clear that she'll follow him wherever he goes. She places her head against his chest, seeking comfort and reassurance. While the prince and Nana are getting all emotional, that church guy, whom I forget the name of, stands outside the door, looking forward to discussing some bridge blueprints with the prince. But after peeking through the gate, realizes it's not the best time to interrupt and decides to figure it out on his own. Meanwhile, in the city outskirts at Grey Castle Capital, we catch up with Theo. Fox has brought his circus crew, and he introduces the first guy as a magician who's been undercover in Dreamwater, gathering juicy intel during the naval port barricade. The magician reports that he entered Dreamwater pretending to be an amnesiac, but most people either died or fled. Even the leader, Tanis, was executed by the Judgment Army, and everyone was scrambling to fill the power vacuum. The mention of the Judgment Army grabs Theo's attention. He remembers that this is the church's secret weapon and takes note of the significance. The magician confirms Theo's suspicions. He adds that Tanis's attempt to seize the port failed spectacularly. After retreating to the Eastern District, they were ambushed by the Skeleton Fingers, leaving them with just about 10 people. In a desperate bid to find the church, Tanis and a few of his subordinates set off, but only 2 or 3 of them made it back. They reported that Tanis had a heated argument with the bishop and ended up impaled by the Judgment Army. Theo connects the dots and realizes that Tanis's downfall was likely due to being cut off from church support. The church's refusal to assist him led to his demise. Dreamwater is in serious trouble, and Theo can see how the pieces are falling into place. Man, all this high-stakes political stuff between the kingdoms is a lot to handle, but honestly, who cares? What really matters is watching Roland wipe the floor with everyone. Theo steps in and announces that he serves under Roland Wimbledon and is in charge of gathering reports for him across the kingdom. With his voice raised, he asks if anyone's interested in working for Prince Roland. The whole circus crew gets fired up and makes it clear they're in as long as Timothy is brought to justice. Theo tells them they'll meet once a week at this time and place, and if anyone has urgent reports, they should leave a pot of purple flowers at the door. They'll knock 3 times long, then 2 short. Everyone agrees, and Theo reminds them that a good informant keeps their identity hidden, so they need to keep a low profile. He tells them to cooperate, and they'll make sure Timothy goes down. Theo asks if anyone has anything to add. That's when Fox chimes in, saying Timothy is already on his way back from the eastern region. He shares rumors from the Black Mallet that Timothy seems to be recruiting a lot of rats into his army. The promise is that these rats can become free citizens if they join, and some members of the Skeleton Fingers have gone to the capital to check it out, and it looks like it's legit. Theo quickly realizes that rats can't be real soldiers, so Timothy is probably planning to use those church pills to make them fight, just like they did before. Theo tells everyone to keep a close eye on the rats and report any updates. This will be their first task. The next scene takes us back to the border town, where we see all the refugees lined down, and the person on the counter is taking all the information about each person, and according to their skill set, they are being assigned to a job. A refugee then comes in front of the desk, saying he's illiterate but a skilled woodworker. The attendant starts asking him the usual questions about the job, and the guy answers confidently but nervously. So the receptionist eventually hands him a form to fill out. Just then, Old Man Barov comes from behind, and with his eyes cold as ice, he asks the receptionist why they're doing such a sloppy job. Then, Barov turns to the alleged woodworker and tells him to show his hands. The man reluctantly holds them out. Barov points out that if this guy was a real woodworker, his hands wouldn't be so rough. They should be shiny and tough from handling wood, and stained black from drawing outlines, which is hard to wash off. Plus, the guy keeps avoiding eye contact, which is a dead giveaway that he's faking it. Most people act like that when they're trying to remember something they never actually experienced. The alleged woodworker starts to panic after being exposed. Faced with the punishment of either being sent to the mines or banished from the western region, Barov asks him one last time if he can confirm his story. The man's face goes pale as he realizes the gravity of his situation and quickly starts banging his head against the floor, confessing that he learned everything by watching his neighbor. The guards take the faker away, and the receptionist, amazed by Barov's insight, comments on his impressive knowledge of woodworking. Barov dismisses the praise, explaining that he picked up these skills during a recruitment drive in the months of demons. Barov advises the receptionist to pay close attention to individuals when they're answering questions. Only those who answer confidently and accurately deserve to be personally evaluated by the prince. He also emphasizes discouraging others from lying by warning them about the severe punishments. Back in the office, Barov reports to the prince that each refugee is expensive, and if they don't work in border town for at least a decade, they won't offset the expense it took to bring them here. The prince reveals his plans, acknowledging that it took 3 days to process the 6,000 refugees. Currently, housing in the town is tight, so he will prioritize the 1,500 skilled artisans first. The other refugees without skills will have to live outside the walls for another 2 or 3 months. The prince instructs Barov to accommodate all the artisans, regardless of whether they are married or not, ensuring they at least get a room. Barov asks what they should do with the spare houses after accommodating the artisans. The prince replies that they should rent them out, giving the refugees a reason to work hard and save money to either buy the house or continue renting it. Prince then asks how many people have left since the ceremony where they introduced the witches to everyone. The old man reports that 0 native villagers and only 6 farm workers have left. Well, it seems like it's a win for our prince, noting that his plan of establishing the theater has convinced many people to accept the witches. However, the old man adds that 110 refugees have left because of their fear of witches, even though they were treated by these very witches. The old man gets all worked up and suggests executing all of them for not showing faith in their prince and to prevent them from returning to the church. But the prince shakes his head, pointing out that the real hardcore church followers were probably among those 300 refugees who stuck around in the capital, even with the plague. They're too stubborn to change their views on witches. All they wanted was to leave, and he is not about to start executing people just because their beliefs are outdated. The scene shifts to the gathered crowd, where the prince unveils an unexpected innovation, which is a bicycle. The core members of the castle look at the strange 2-wheeled contraption with curiosity. Knight Carter raises an eyebrow and remarks that balancing on those wheels seems tricky, and questions how it could ever replace horses. The prince just casually hops onto the bicycle and demonstrates how it works. As he pedals around, he enthusiastically explains that he plans to mass-produce these bikes. He's even called in Sister Soraya to sketch out riding positions so they can teach the townspeople. His goal is to make this new mode of transport accessible to everyone, promising that even common folk will get a taste of this luxury, and it'll cost just a couple of royals. The prince's excitement is contagious, and he's clearly eager to see the bicycles become a common sight in Border Town. Shortly after, Knight Carter decides to give the bicycle a spin himself. He's completely impressed by the sleek design and rides it around with a big grin, asking Sister Soraya if she did the drawing for his riding position. She nods proudly, and Carter's eyes widen when he sees the detailed and handsome painting of himself. As everyone enjoys their time with the new invention, Prince Roland watches with a satisfied smile. He then turns his attention back to Alchemist Kyle, ready to dive into their next big project. The prince explains that he's going to need a lot more acid than the lab can currently produce. To solve this, he plans to design a chemical system that will churn out acid efficiently and in large quantities. Kyle looks puzzled, never having heard of such a system before. Roland explains that it will involve multiple reaction mechanisms, with the product flowing continuously as long as they keep feeding it the basic ingredients. Kyle's intrigued but admits it's new territory for him. He's up for the challenge and is determined to make it work. Roland also mentions his plans to expand to 3 more labs by the Redwater River next month and bring in qualified staff to keep things running smoothly. Outside, the old man takes a tumble as he tries out the bicycle for the first time. He dusts himself off, sighing and muttering about how he's getting too old for this kind of thing. Meanwhile, Prince Roland is deep in thought, mulling over the advancements in weaponry thanks to their recent breakthroughs. With the new mercuric fulminate in play, he needs large quantities of fuming nitric acid. Since his current labs can't meet the demand, he's considering asking Sister Lucia for help. Because the only way to win these upcoming wars against the Church, he will need more than a few cannons and firearms. As he's lost in these thoughts, he reaches for some dried fish to snack on. Before he can even get a bite, Nightingale appears and mischievously stuffs a piece of fried fish into his mouth. Her gesture is both unexpected and warmly received, pulling him out of his deep contemplation. The scene cuts to outside where Prince introduces himself to these little kids and congratulates them for completing their basic education and becoming the town's first graduates. The kids are ecstatic to be speaking directly with the prince, and their excitement is off the charts. He praises Karl von Bate for his significant role in their education and announces that everyone will receive a generous reward based on their performance, regardless of their career choice. The kids cheer and celebrate, thrilled at the prospect of a bright future, and start dreaming about their new salaries and the bicycles they'll soon be able to ride. They excitedly discuss applying for positions at the city hall, envisioning a better life ahead. The prince then decides to distribute the degrees, instructing everyone to come forward when their name is called. A girl playfully pushes her friend to take his degree first. The boy reluctantly steps forward, and the prince hands him his degree, congratulating him on graduating. Feeling a surge of confidence, the boy expresses his eagerness to sign up for the chemistry laboratory and follow in the footsteps of Kyle Sichi,